President Biden is praising Democrats' efforts in the 2022 midterm elections.
There are still several toss-up races in both the House and the Senate, but initial estimates projected a much wider margin of victory for the Republican Party. So that's part of the big news now.
Yeah.
President Biden shared his pleasure on that line with proving that those projections were wrong, he says.
While the press and the pundits are predicting a giant red wave, it didn't happen. And I know you were somewhat miffed by my obsessive optimism, but I felt good during the whole process. I thought we were going to do fine. While any seat lost is painful, some good Democrats didn't win the last night.
Senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now. Ed, always good to have your thoughts on this. So we see that the president is feeling pretty good about the outcome of the 2022 midterms. Fact check him on that, though. How much was a big red wave being projected? Obviously, Democrats outperformed expectations, but how far off is this victory for the White House?
Look, there were Democrats who maintained optimism. The president, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and many of those around them. The issue here was a few things. One, historic midterm trends that suggested the party out of power was likely going to make gains, as they are going to do. The anomaly this time, however, was whether the reaction to the Roe versus Wade decision in June and the fact that this was the first election since January 6th, so the issues of abortion rights and the future of democracy, how they might scramble the usual historic trends. And they did.
Right.
In essence, what these results show us is that Republicans did pick up seats. They're probably going to get a slim majority of maybe 10 to 12, no more than 20 at this point. We'll wait and see. And we can talk about that in a second. Democrats, though, and this is the one thing about what the president says is, it was the press and pundits. No. It was also members of his own party. It was the people running the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee that was responsible for getting members of the House elected. It was people at the Democratic National Committee that he helps oversee in a titular way. So it wasn't just Republicans and the press and the pundits. It was Democrats as well who knew the historical trends and were worried that the surge of Republican optimism and turnout and support and money in the closing weeks might in fact overtake them, as it did in some races. But then Democrats ended up winning in some places where it wasn't anticipated, and there are some Democratic candidates coming to the House that offset losses that they may have had in other places. So it was a different cycle, and it speaks to the need for all of us to perhaps rethink voter trends, voting trends, and the politics of a lot of these different states.
And it appears that for the Americans who headed to the polls, they want Congress to get things done. Let's try to be as optimistic as possible with the potential overlap between the Biden agenda and Republicans in Congress. We know Kevin McCarthy, who will be the House Speaker, has said, look, they're going to launch some investigations into what this administration has done. But President Biden, in his speech yesterday, did detail a few areas where he's willing to work with Republicans. Where might the best shot be for that cooperation?
Well, he said he's not in favor of lowering taxes on high earners or corporations, not in favor of Republican plans to revamp Medicare and Social Security, which they ran on and which Democrats used against them in some of these races. But he does understand there's got to be some compromise on other issues. And so we'll see when it comes to things like the debt limit, when it comes to possibly talking about fighting crime and dealing with gun control or immigration issues and border security, if they can find accord. You got to remember, the House majority now, it looks like, is going to have a pretty notable balance or distribution among hardcore conservatives who have been out to get this administration since the first day, and more moderate Republicans who won in parts of the country where the president won in 2020 and where he is poised to do better in 2024 should he run for re-election, as he says he will. So you're going to have Republicans in that conference in the House seeking bipartisan agreements, because they got to be able to go home and say, look, I did what you asked. I worked with the other side, and we got things done. And inversely, you're going to have Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans seeking the same thing as well. This is a guy who thrives in bipartisan agreement territory, so inevitably something will get sorted out. There will be investigations by House Republicans. There always are of the other party, and that's to be expected. Congressional oversight is something that's allowed for and expected. The extent to which it goes, however, is what McCarthy and his committee chairman are going to have to sort out, both whether they're justified and whether it makes political sense.
Well, we do know that President Biden loves making those deals, loves, extending a hand to the other side. He's off to the climate summit in Egypt later tonight, but we just learned that he's also going to be meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping during the G20 summit in Bali. Talk about really extending a hand across the aisle in an entirely different context. Ed, what more do you know about this?
So he's making 3 stops now in the next few days in a bit of aggressive overseas travel. He will stop first Friday in Cairo at that COP27 Global Climate Conference run by the United Nations to make remarks, and then get on the flight again and go on to Cambodia for an Asian security summit that's being held there. He'll be the only big world leader in attendance, big in the sense of superpowers. No appearance by Russian President Putin, no appearance there by Chinese President Xi. But at the G20 in Bali, Indonesia on Monday is where President Biden and President Xi will meet. They have talked on the phone 5 times since Mr. Biden took office, not yet in person. But they also know each other dating back to their days as deputies for previous American and Chinese presidents. They spent time together here in Washington and in Los Angeles when then Vice Premier Xi came to visit the United States. He also at that time made stops in Iowa, among other places. And then Xi accompanied then Vice President Biden on a trip through China as well. And as the president said yesterday, he has spent more than 70 hours on the phone or in person with Xi, more than any other world leader, more than any other American. So he argues he's got a chance at a good relationship with him. The White House saying today the conversations are likely to focus on what's going on in the Taiwan Strait, human rights violations across China that the president is concerned about and always voices concern about with world leaders who may have a record of that. Concerns also about China's place in the competitive economic world and the fact that it's been accused by the United States and other countries of stealing a lot of intellectual property and perhaps overstepping in that regard. But they said, aides did, that they are also seeking cooperation on issues like climate change and sorting out what to do about the Ukraine-Russia situation as well. So it'll be an important conversation, one that the president has been eager to have in person. Xi now planning for what I believe is only his second out-of-China trip since the COVID-19 pandemic, which is part of the reason why they weren't able to meet sooner at other summits last year or earlier this year. But now that he's traveling, now that he's gotten his next 5-year term from the Communist Party in China, it seems the diplomacy is going to continue, and the two of them eager to set the road.
Interesting.
For the future talks.
It'll be something that we're waiting to see what will come out of that. And as an Iowan, I always appreciate your nods to the Hawkeye State, Ed. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed.
Take care.